Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on the 20th of April. It's about 9:05 in the morning. We're going to hit 85 degrees today, so things are picking up. It's likely that this broadcast will block out for a few seconds at some point because they're flashing me, you know, uh, notices to upgrade the programs here, and I don't want to do that right now. I'll probably do it later today. So I'll pick it up and fix it. What we're going to cover today is how China is setting up proxies in the Middle East. We're going to go through the truth, what China really did, which was pretty clever, about the luxury goods scandal with the purses and the handbags and the watches and the running shoes and the clothes. I'm going to explain to you what they really did. And it was pretty clever, okay? We're going to talk about Turkey and Gaza. Turkey is, the Muslim version is Turkey is talking about military action in Gaza to make sure the Gazans don't starve to death, and the Israeli version is somewhat different, just that Turkey wants to make sure Gaza, the people don't starve, and military aid and stuff like that. And we'll try to get the balance. It's been now the second day no attack on Israel from the Houthis, yet the Houthis took down 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones in 24 hours, which goes a long way in showing us that they're getting help from China. I don't think Iran, I think China. And Egypt is having military exercises with China now, so the plot is thickening. Turkey, according to the Muslims, not so much according to Israel media, is getting ready to move into Gaza, but I can't say that's truth yet. But they're definitely stirring the pot. And Saudi Arabia is not yet ready to move against Israel, but it's moving in that direction, and Jordan not yet, but it's likely Jordan will get overthrown, or maybe to avoid getting overthrown, the goofy king of Jordan will turn against Israel. And we're going to go through where the negotiations with Trump and Iran are going and why they're going to go there. And it's not good news, and it's going to hurt Trump's popularity as I see it. And then the big question is, because we're seeing Israel is now saying they might do a limited strike on the Iranian nuclear facilities, is now Israel works as a proxy for America. You got to accept that. And that's evil, but Netanyahu is evil. So is this a setup? In other words, Israel does a limited strike on Iran, and then Iran unloads on Israel, and that's Satan's plan to destroy Israel, because that would keep them out of the pit. So is that what's going on? Or is Trump using proxy Israel to start the war? And then Iran would likely attack America as well, military ships, bases, and also hit oil refineries of other countries to destabilize the world oil prices. And then Trump could be free to enter into the war. This is a paradox to analyze, and we'll get into it. And then we're going to cover with the scriptures in great detail, all the detail you need, why Apostle John is one of the 2 witnesses and why Moses is not. Everybody seems to agree on Elijah. We'll touch on that and show you the scriptures for that. But we're going to make it very, very clear why Apostle John is one of the 2 witnesses. So, that being said, I hope my mods are here. I'm very grateful for the mods to help me out. It really is makes my life much easier. And I will have to keep checking the live stream to make sure they didn't, you know, put the update your system thing up to block out the broadcast. And it's so annoying that they do that. I don't understand. And I thought I turned it off, but it still does it. So I should have done that yesterday, but I didn't. Then I'll try to get to it today so it doesn't keep happening. Okay, let's check our live stream, make sure we got one. So I should have done that yesterday, but I didn't. We got plenty of sound and picture. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Many thanks to the mods, by the way. Someone wrote a comment about the U.S.'s weak position to start war with Iran right now. You're right. Yep, you're entirely correct on that. We'll deal with that today. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, I'm gonna Old and New Testament. I'm gonna do some praise, and we'll jump right in. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. Let me start with the luxury goods so we get this out, because it's pretty clever what China did. So there's been a massive amount of videos on TikTok and YouTube and all over the internet about China saying the luxury goods like Adidas, Nike, Rolex, Patek Philippe, Gucci, Chanel, and others, with a heavy focus on the luxury purses and handbags, Louis Vuitton, that they're all fake because they're being made in, they're being made in China, or at least 80% of it. And they're saying all they do is they make it in China using using the raw materials that the luxury brands specify, which is the best of the leathers and all of this stuff. And they put it together and make it in China with Chinese craftsmen. Then they send it back to France or Italy, wherever the luxury goods are being made. And they put it in the packaging and the labeling, and they put the name of the manufacturer on it and stuff like that. So what they're trying to do is not so much hurt the sales of luxury goods, although that's definitely a motive. Trump has the tariffs on Chinese goods going up to 245%. So they're trying to kill the business for Chanel and Prada and Fendi and Louis Vuitton and, all of these, including the watches now. They're telling us that Rolex, Patek Philippe, and watch brands like this are using Chinese craftsmen to put the watches together to a great extent as well. So they're trying to force America to put a 245% tariff on these goods, although they're shipping into America from the European Union, France, Italy, and so forth, Switzerland. There's some high-end watches made in Germany, but I do not know if those are being accused by China or not. And make Trump put a 245% tariff on it. So the $38,000 base level Birkin purse would go for close to $100,000. It would be maybe 80 something thousand dollars, which is going to knock their sales down by probably 80-90%. And the more expensive purses that sell for $80,000 or something like that would be pushing towards 200,000. So these companies are going to try to put pressure on Trump if Trump decides to say, well, what you're doing is a scam. These products are 80% made in China, like China says, which is probably true. So you're going to have an 80% tariff of the 245%. So you have 80 and 80, and so they'll have roughly 190, 195% tariff, something like that, which will kill their sales and cripple luxury goods that the elite, the Satan bots, buy. The Bible believers don't buy this stuff. The regular people don't buy this stuff. It's the top 2-3% of Americans buy that, economically top. They're the ones that buy this stuff. Okay? How many people do you know that run around with a $40,000 purse or buy $3,000 Cartier sunglasses? You might know people that buy $200-300 running shoes to get the latest model. When I bought running shoes last year, I was buying the models that were a year or so out of date, maybe 2 years even. So they had raving reviews a year or two ago, and the prices are half or less than half, they're probably 30% of what you're getting, with the new versions. So it's much cheaper, and they're still darn good shoes. And I'm not a marathon runner or anything, so they work great for me. So you really can get them if you look around on about 30%, maybe 40% at the very highest, but less than that. It's pretty cheap, maybe 25%. They're cheap. You buy them from like Amazon, where they're shipped directly from Amazon, and they're not counterfeit. If you buy products from Amazon and they're shipped by the manufacturer or a distributor, not from Amazon, you got to be very careful, because they could likely be counterfeit goods. Many years ago, I bought a watch, a Casio. It was about $20-30. And I got it, and the thing fell apart in a month. It was counterfeit, So I complained, and they said, don't buy from people other than, Amazon Direct, because if they ship counterfeit goods to Amazon, and Amazon sells it to you and ships it to you, then Amazon has culpability for counterfeit goods. They could get fined big time, like millions and millions of dollars by the government. They could get into a lot of trouble. So they make sure, if they're bringing stuff into the Amazon warehouses and then shipping it, they're the seller. When they're just collecting the money and giving the order to the other one, and they're disclaiming to you that the people shipping it to you are not them, they got less culpability. Okay, they can weasel out of it with the lawyers much easier. Are they still complicit in the fraud? Absolutely. But they can get out of it a lot better. But if they're bringing it into their warehouse and they're collecting the money and shipping it to you, bottom line, they're selling you counterfeit goods, cut and dry. So they are very careful about that. You're probably not going to get counterfeit goods from Amazon directly. So anyway, back to this. So, as I told you, I tracked down by watching a number of these videos to see if you could really find these companies and buy something from them directly. And then they're impossible to find. Go find them, try it. You really can't. People tell you the name of the company. Yeah, now go find it and go try to place an order. Go try to contact them. Go see if they talk English or French or whatever. Yeah, it's absurd. Nobody's going to buy anything from them. You can't find them. And then who the heck are they? Are they real? And how the heck do you know if you're buying a $38,000 purse for $1,400 with the same raw materials and craftsmanship and workmanship, you're just missing the packaging and the labeling of the brand on the item? Well, who's going to buy that? You don't know. $1,400, you'd be throwing money out. Now, if they ship it without saying it's a Louis Vuitton or a Chanel or something, your country is probably going to let it in because it looks identical to a Louis Vuitton, but the packaging is different and it doesn't say Louis Vuitton on it. So the chances of it coming in are probably 98% or 100% even. Okay, the customs people are just not oriented to saying that's a counterfeit, because they can't sit there and look at all the models that Chanel and Louis Vuitton, etc., sell and take these items and compare them to, 80 Louis Vuitton purses and handbags and another 80 Chanel. Yeah, they can't. They don't know who to even look at because the item from China doesn't have the brand name on it. So they'd have to look at all the. It's going to get through 99.9%. Unless things change, it's going to get through. But I don't think it's going to change. It would be such a burden for customs to track this stuff down. These people, customs inspectors, are looking for many things, okay? And if the item doesn't say Louis Vuitton or Chanel, it's not a counterfeit in their mind. If you bought a Rolex watch that looks exactly like a Rolex, and there's a million companies that sell them, they're not as good, the quality is not there, but and it doesn't say Rolex, it says Dolex or Schmolex or something like that, they're going to let it through. If it has the logo label, the Rolex logo on the strap or the watch or something like that, on the winder or the crown, yeah, then they'll get very concerned about it and maybe stop it. But it's generally going to get through because they don't consider it a counterfeit. You can't sell it to somebody as a Rolex because it says Bolex or something on it, Or sometimes they don't even say Bolex. They'll just say, Sigma watches or something like that, or Zeus watches, or anything. If you make a Patek Philippe and you call it, Patek Philippe or something like that, they'll even let it in because it doesn't. It's not a counterfeit if it doesn't have the name on it. But what they're really trying to do is get the United States government riled up and put the 245% tax on these items. Now, the people that are going to be affected if this happens is many running shoe manufacturers, which is a massive industry. So you're probably going to get the big ones, Adidas, Nike, New Balance, Saucony, and probably 6 others. Okay? And their running shoes are rather a big industry. Okay? Then you're going to get people that make sweaters, scarves, dresses, slacks, pants, that make them similar to the higher end jeans, but this is not a huge industry. I found some jeans I had in the house that I bought probably 15 years ago when I was in the world making money and had rather generous amount of income. And I bought the highest end Levi's I could find on Amazon at the time. And I dug a pair out, and they're kind of nice. I don't like the way they're cut, but the denim on that is much thicker and feels different than the denim. Like I usually get Wranglers for 20 something dollars, and they're thin. The denim is thin, but that works in my favor here because it's a hot climate most of the year. So I don't want thick denim, you know. But I have them, and they're nice, and they're really well made, and they're discontinued because they'd be rather expensive. I was paying 50 or 60 something dollars a pair for them. I bought a few pairs. They probably would be over $100 today, and they make denim jeans in Japan, by the way. It's a cult thing. And they sell them for, anywhere from, $200 to $700 a pair of jeans. And they got, supposedly really great denim. Well, how great can the denim be, for crying out loud, I mean, come on. But a lot of companies are making, like I'm sure the high-end down jacket manufacturers are using China. It's huge. And if they, so they're basically repackaging it and putting some final touches on it and selling it. So I think that China has not really been trying to sell these goods to people without the name on it. I don't think that's real, and I don't think there's a market for that. If people are going to buy a purse that doesn't display the brand name of Chanel or Gucci or Prada or Fendi or something like that, or Dior, they're not going to spend $1,400. They'll buy something for $200-300. Okay? So they wanted to say Louis Vuitton so they could walk around and say, look at me, I got a $5,000 purse, or I got an $80,000 purse, That's what, so it's playing back with Trump. And it's a pretty interesting idea. Okay? Trump hasn't picked up on it yet. Well, he hasn't verbalized it. He's probably well aware of it, and he's probably contacted Elon Musk, and the two of them are probably talking about it. Trump has caused, speaking of China and tariffs, Trump has caused many companies based in that opened up American, European companies, etc., opened up factories in China years ago to manufacture goods because the tariffs were really very low and non-existent. And the labor is cheap, the land is cheap, the construction of the factory is cheap. They don't have to pay workman's compensation, the unemployment insurance, they don't have to give the benefits like America. The hourly wages or weekly wages are way, way, way lower. Everything is cheaper. So they're making the stuff there in China. Well, a lot of these companies have folded. In other words, they just moved out of China. So there's an empty building that nobody's going to move into. Okay? They still own the building. But they hope maybe they could sell it for, a third or a fourth of what they paid for it someday. But they got money. They're okay with this. And they're opening up factories like in America, or they may go to Europe. Right now, I believe Trump's taxing Europe at 10%. That they could live with. They're not worried about that. They could they could lose 10% of profits and keep their prices the same. They don't care. They could do that. They're still making plenty of money. And China's suffering. So the amount of workers that are unemployed is soaring. And these companies consume goods in China to manufacture. That's gone. They're probably paying some kind of taxes to China. That's gone. They're banking in China, they're bolstering the banks, that's gone. They're moving goods around China using China shipping countries to get to the airports and the ports and the piers, and that's gone. And I can keep going and going and going. It's gone. So China's really suffering. Don't kid yourself. When it comes to the tariff war, that's business. Trump is very good at that. So they are probably going to come to the table with Trump. But let me tell you what's really going on. Trump is putting pressure on Iran. How does Trump do it? Well, he gives Israel all kinds of weapons. He's probably up to 30 something, 35 or so warships in the Middle East, soon to get around 50, hundreds of planes, not just on aircraft carriers, and military bases around the Middle East, and putting tremendous threats on Iran. Yet he has not attacked Iran, nor has Biden attacked Iran. They're both behaving the same way. They both attacked Yemen, but Biden did not attack Yemen with the ferocity that Trump is. I understand now the attacks on Yemen are going 24/7, not just during the night. Interesting. The Pentagon said that they never used a massive ordnance penetrator bomb on Yemen. That's basically, it's never been done. Have they flown B-52s? It appears they have moved, had B-52s not moved, fly from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, that British base America's using for the stealth bombers and B-52s. They've flown those to Yemen to attack Yemen, but they were not using MOP bombs, or I don't believe MOAB bombs. They were using other weapons. Exactly what they were using, we're not told. Okay? So, yeah, in the last 24 hours, Yemen took down 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones, which are about $30 million a throw. They're up to, I believe, 21 or 22 MQ-9 Reaper drones they've taken down. Now, the Houthis are basically the village idiots, okay? They're illiterate, they're not scientists. I mean, I'll use my old analogy. Have you ever seen on the market a television made in Yemen, a refrigerator, a smartphone, a computer, a tablet, a wristwatch, a microwave oven, an automobile, a motorcycle, or anything like that? No. So how can they make these missiles? Well, they can't, unless they get help. And the help now appears to be from China. Now, while they took down the 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones in 24 hours, now we're on the second day again where they did not attack Israel. They just attacked Israel one day, I believe. Now they're not attacking Israel anymore. Yet they're attacking American warships and taking down Reaper drones. They can't take down the stealth drones that America uses to oversee the other kinds of drones. Spiritual warfare. So what's going on? Well, I think China told the Houthis in Yemen to cut it out with attacking Israel. They were using what I believe is a stealth satellite. This is the best intel I could dig. Not a satellite, a drone. That's very, very advanced, and it's acquiring target packages for the Houthis, giving them the coordinates, and then they're launching. And it's even likely that these drones are helping guide the missiles and drones into target. not just giving them the coordinates, although that might be enough. They're actually may be helping them guide the missiles in. But they're using Chinese products, missiles, to take down these drones. If they're not Chinese, they're Iranian. And the Iranians are probably getting them from China. So now China's starting military exercises with Egypt in Egypt. And they're giving Egypt advanced air defense systems based on the S-400 from Russia, but heavily modified. And it's much, much more effective. So that's to stop Israel from attacking Egypt, because Egypt is violating the Camp David Accords by having over 100,000 soldiers in the Sinai Peninsula and building bases and military fortifications, and they got tanks and everything else. That's on our border in the south. While they have not yet attacked us, it's clear that they're positioning themselves to do so. So we now have two proxies from China, okay? Egypt and Yemen. And of course, Iran is a proxy. And if Egypt, Yemen, and Iran is a proxy, we better believe that Iraq is a proxy, and Iraq is a proxy of Iran, i.e. now it would be a proxy of China. And they probably have advanced weapons given to them by China also, which can easily be deployed against American bases, specifically Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, even Saudi Arabia, and could be used to hit Israeli installations in Syria. And they can hit oil refineries in these countries and the American bases. America has 58,000 soldiers in these bases. Iraq is close to Qatar, which is a very big air base that America has there. And Bahrain is a Navy base that they have there. Now, if they're helping Yemen, imagine what China is going to do for Iran. So what Trump, in my opinion, is trying to do, and it's rather bright, is break China as hard and as fast as possible economically through tariffs. And he's really hurting them. And then when China comes to him, and they're already saying they're open to negotiations, he's going to cut some sort of deal with China, but it's going to have a lot of side issues. Okay? China really wants to be able to buy oil from Iran freely. And Trump may let that happen, giving China an exemption from Iranian sanctions, which Biden did to India. And this keeps Iran going, and it keeps the proxies in business, the Hezbollah, the Hamas, the Iraq, the various militias in Yemen, and all of this sick stuff, right? So Trump's logic there is, well, Israel's destroying Hezbollah. They've been busted up tremendously already, and we're destroying Yemen. And then what's left? Well, Iraq, but they've been behaving themselves right now, and Syria, well, Turkey's moving into Syria, and he doesn't get on very well with Iran, so we're okay there.
I found this on the web.
You're not okay there. We're not okay there. We're very un-okay there. Israel is. And it's very curious that America is moving the soldiers out of their bases in Syria. It's already begun. And they're saying they want to wind up with something like around 1,000 or 1,500 total soldiers amongst the bases in Syria, which is very few at any base. And that might even shrink lower. Or we don't know what Trump's going to do. He flip-flops. So, what is China's tactics in Asia Pacific? They use their proxy, North Korea, to constantly threaten South Korea. They constantly threaten Taiwan. How? Very much the same way Trump threatens Iran. They bring warships real close to Taiwan and encircle it. Well, what is Trump doing with the Persian Gulf? The ships are right outside the Persian Gulf and stuff. It's the same thing. Did China ever attack Taiwan yet? No. Did North Korea ever attack South Korea yet? No. And Japan would be in the fracas. And you could add in the Philippines and, that kind of thing. So, but, Philippines and Guam is to a lesser extent. So they're both doing the same thing. They're threatening war, which is rumors of war, but they're not actually going through with the war. So China's looking at what Trump's doing, and they're saying he's doing what we're doing. So now they're pushing back against Trump with using the proxies. They never conducted military exercises with Egypt, and a few weeks ago, they conducted very limited military naval exercises with Iran and Russia around the Persian Gulf, the Indian Ocean. They're not in a position to cripple America by putting sanctions on America because American goods don't sell to any great extent inside China. They're way too expensive. And on top of the expense, then you put the shipping costs to go halfway around the world, and then the tariffs that China puts on American goods. And there's not much going on there. So they can't hurt America with counter tariffs, where, Canada, Mexico, Europe, they can do that with counter tariffs. They could hurt America. For a lot of reasons, Trump is afraid to attack Iran right now. The missile cities, deep down in mountains covered by rock, 1,640 feet in, 12 of them loaded with hundreds and thousands of missiles. The underground nuclear facilities. Now, what I am told, and I got this from what I would consider a very reliable source, Iran has the big 5 or so nuclear facilities that everybody knows about, but there's 27 other facilities in Iran working on these nuke materials that are kept secret. 27. Now, the way the negotiations are proceeding is they had another meeting in Saturday in Rome, and the Iranian and the Americans both said it was a productive meeting. And Iran, a gazillion times, said they have no intention of getting rid of their nukes, closing their facilities. These are peaceful projects. And their cover story is, we're here to make, electricity, nuclear power plants. But they're running the uranium at such high levels of yield, it's, 25 or 50 times more than you need for nuclear energy. Okay? So they're lying openly. And Wednesday, there's going to be a meeting on technicalities. In other words, a scientific type meeting, possibly with the IAEA or other experts, and they're going to tell Iran what they want them to do. Downgrade the yield of the uranium and stuff like that. Their missile program is off the table. So Iran is apparently playing into it. And they're saying if things go Wednesday in a way that we can live with, then we're going to meet again in Oman on Saturday. So the negotiations are stepping up in pace, obviously. So what it looks like is going to happen, because Trump has a severe fear of what Iran's capability is with China in there and Russia. But let's not be stupid. For 3 years, Russia's been getting their teeth kicked in and their head handed to them by Ukraine. So and Russia's been beating down Ukraine too. So let's not be dumb and say Russia has all this great military technology, but over the last 3 years, they instead decided to lose a massive amount of tanks, trucks, other vehicles, massive, massive amounts of soldiers, in the hundreds of thousands, plus wounded, lost a ton of money, had military bases struck, and have had probably 25 to 30% of their oil refineries attacked successfully by Ukraine. And all this is going on, and they got these great military might, and they're just not using it. Let's not be stupid. This scare of Russia was to make you dependent on your government and put up with an outrageous amount of military spending. That's all it was. So I don't think Russia has such great weapons, as evidenced by the problems they've had with Ukraine. Now, recently, Germany said we're giving Taurus missiles to Ukraine, which have a range of 300 miles, which is probably 110, 120 miles greater than what they've already had. So that means more Russian military bases are going to get hit, and more Russian oil refineries, weapons plants, etc., are going to get hit and blown up. So what does Russia say? Oh, if Germany gives them these missiles and they use them against Russia, in our opinion, Germany entered the war. Let me play my violin. So what? How many red lines have the NATO and America crossed with Russia? So, okay, we're going to believe Russia's going to take their bombers and fly over there to Germany and bomb Germany, and then NATO's going to go all the way after them. And they got to sit and hope and pray that Iran, China, North Korea, Belarus, and them come to the aid of Russia. China is very unreliable when it comes to going to war with an ally for an ally's sake. China's all for China, and that's it. Trump's all for America, just like China. Russia has a steadfast habit of backing up their allies, and they will probably do something with Iran. The something that Iran and China would come up with is probably a combined fleet of someplace between 15 and 25 or even 30 warships that can launch missiles, maybe Chinese aircraft carriers, although I doubt it, missile launching boats, submarines, etc., to the Middle East to counter America. That's what I believe their plan would be if it gets to that. So what Trump is likely going to do is play the game with Iran. Iran's going to say, and Trump's going to say, they want to make nuclear energy, electricity, etc., fine. And they're going to cut this back, and, they'll have to come up with some concessions for America, and they know that. And what that's going to lead to is the release of the sanctions, or the massive amount of them, so Iran's economy picks up, and then Iran will pursue a course of making more conventional weapons, which I don't believe in nukes anyway. More conventional weapons to destroy everybody with. Missiles, they'll get the ranges up to enough to reach America eventually. They'll probably manage to finagle semi-stealth jets out of Russia and China. They'll keep making more drone aircraft carriers, more missile boats, more go-fast boats, more submarines that are small and hard to detect, and creating all kinds of problems with their proxies, trying to dominate the Middle East. It's not a question of Trump being dumb enough to do this. It's a question of Trump can't take a war with Iran right now. It would be too darn devastating to America. The fleet would sink. A Pentagon guy a few days ago was speaking and said that their fleet would go down in 20 minutes in the Middle East. It's anti-ship missiles that China's making. And China would support the targeting on these things with their stealth drones that are apparently resistant to the Growler aircraft that jam everything, or the Houthis wouldn't be doing what they did. The other day, the missile made it well into Israel. It was taken down over Israel airspace. You can't just point the missile at Israel and light the fuse, so to speak, to make a joke, push the fire button, and the thing's going to go find its way inside Israel. But Israel does do a lot of commerce with China. We don't have sanctions on China. So we can buy goods from China, all we want. And we have tons of Chinese goods running all over America. We have buses, city buses, national buses from China. We have Chinese trucks, Chinese motorcycles, Chinese clothing, Chinese this, Chinese that. So they told the Houthis in Yemen to knock it off with, going after China. So I think they knocked it off. Their main focus is on America because they want America to give them a good deal on the tariffs, like Trump is doing to other countries. So Trump will make a jerk deal with Iran. Iran will keep their nuclear facilities. They'll keep making stuff. It'll be 2015 again. They'll say, okay, 3% uranium or something like that, right? And then after a few months or maybe a year, when Iran has built up their military arsenal, probably triple what they have now, which is impressive, they'll start back up with the blocking the IAEA inspections, and they'll start it all over again. Only this time they'll be 3 times more powerful. And it won't take them but a few months. They want Trump to release all the money, the billions and billions that are frozen due to sanctions. They want to, basically let the Chinese buy all the oil they want from them without any harassment. And they'll probably stipulate other countries as well, like, India. It's going to build Iran up, but Trump doesn't really have a choice. I'm telling you, he doesn't have a choice. He ain't going to survive this. And I'm not even getting into the sleeper agents, and I'm not even getting into Iran attacking Taiwan, North Korea attacking South Korea, both of them attacking Japan and the Philippines, and America getting all messed up, and then Russia and Belarus probably would hit Romania and Poland, definitely Poland. And now NATO got to face Russia with possible assistance from North Korea and China. Okay. Without America wanting to do anything. As Trump is saying, if he can't make a peace deal with Ukraine, he's out. That means no more money, no more military assistance to Ukraine, no more giving them targeted packages and intel and intelligence. It's over. Now NATO has to carry the ball. And will NATO really push this that hard, knowing it could provoke a war with Russia, and America's going to say, sorry, fellas, we're too heavy with our tariff war right now. You know what I'm saying? Trump's words don't speak this, but his actions do. Every politician of every country, including America, they've been lying to us about telling us the missiles from Yemen, some weeks ago were being taken down outside of Israel. No, they weren't. There was quite a few taken down inside Israel. They found the shrapnel. Unless the Iron Domes were just blowing up over Israel by mistake, which I doubt. I'll be back in a minute. Quick break. And then we're going to talk about, is America setting Israel up with the cooperation of Netanyahu, like October 7th? Now, a lot of you probably are not aware of what happened on October 7th in reality, but October 7th apparently was allowed to happen. Okay? There was so much talk about Israel having warnings about it that they ignored. Biden didn't want Netanyahu coming to America for the longest time. Then all of a sudden, in September of 2023, October 7th was 2023, he says, hey, Netanyahu could come to America and meet with me anytime he wants. And then a few days later, September 23rd, Netanyahu flies over to the White House and meets with Biden. How curious. Then he comes back to Israel and October 7th happens. Now, when that happened, there was a lot of soldiers going quietly and secretly in social media saying they were at the Gaza border in the military, and this is outrageous. It never should have happened. Never. All the guards were down. They had women soldiers, poorly trained, in the watchtowers, and they saw the invasion coming in, and they got on the radio, and the IDF was laughing at them, saying, no, it's a mistake, it's a mistake. A lot of them got killed, and a lot of them became hostages, plus male soldiers. But these were not heavily trained. We had so many defenses over there that were down. The sensors were going off. Nobody was listening. Okay? We have guys, I believe they're Bedouins in the military, that are trackers like Apache Indians and things like that, right? And in case, one or two or three or something come in, they know how to follow the signs and they track them and then they eliminate them. Where were they? Where were they? Why didn't anybody listen to these many soldiers calling in reports about this? Why didn't they just look at the cameras and see it? I was sitting outside. I didn't know from nothing. I got out early in the morning. It was the hot weather. I was out maybe before 6 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock or something like. I was out there quite early, and I saw all the red alerts going off on my phone. I couldn't believe it. I said somebody must have hacked the system. Everything in Israel is going off. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what was going on. It was early in the morning. It was a Jewish holiday, and I'm sitting there looking at this stuff. It wasn't a biblical holiday, the dates and so forth, but it was a Jewish holiday. So I'm looking, rabbinical. So I'm looking at this. I don't know what's going on. It takes me about 45 minutes to an hour, and I start seeing a few other people woke up and they're making social media posts. They don't know what's going on. I wasn't hearing missiles or sirens because the attacks were not up in my area. I'm north. This was in the south. I don't know what's happening. So it turns out that it took the aircraft several hours to respond to this, to the missiles and everything coming in. Usually it would be several minutes. It took hours. They let it happen. I have no other explanation for this. I really can't think of one. Okay? And instead of coming to help the soldiers in the watchtowers by Gaza, which I could see on a holiday and maybe would have taken 20 minutes to get there, if not normally 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. But it took them hours. It took, like 5 hours till they got there. And then you have Netanyahu and his lunatic gun control for the people living near the Gaza border, and they couldn't defend themselves. So they waited. Now, this got Israel riled up against Gaza. And all roads, I was telling you this in 2023, lead to Iran. Now, Trump comes in and wants to go after Iran, and he can't. He doesn't have the ability. Now, you talk to people that were in the military and the various preppers and survivalists, and America could kill the whole world. We could get everybody in 24 hours in the whole world. We're that good. They're not. Look who's in their military. Are you in the military, prepper and survivalist? No, you're a prepper, you're a survivalist. You're not in the military. The military is not full of patriots. Are there patriots in the military? Absolutely. A decent amount? Absolutely. But there's a ton of other people that are there because they just don't have a way to go. They got out of high school somehow, and they don't want to go work at. Would you like fries with that? So they go in the military and they learn a skill, a trade, a craft, and they stay there and they make good money. But these are not patriots. These are people that went into the military because it's a better life than would you like fries with that? If there's a lot of fighting, I'll bet you there's going to be massive amount of defections in the military. They'll take their uniform off and walk away. I'll bet you. I'll bet you. when you grow up in a poor neighborhood and you got a broken family and you manage to struggle through high school or get a GED or whatever and you go join the military, for a few months you don't have it so good. You got to go through basic and then you got to go through some other training. But by the time you get someplace between month six and month 9, you got a stripe or two and you're being treated much better. You could live on the base for free, eat in the base for free, get all your medical for free, save your money, buy a reasonably priced car or motorcycle, buy some clothes. You got a life. Then after, like 2 or 3 years, when your re-enlistment comes, whatever it is, you're going to get a re-enlistment bonus, and then you can move off base with some other guys. And, now you're still in your very low 20s, and you got yourself a life. Then they can build a family if they want. Then when they re-up the second time, they're going to get bumped up with the stripes. They're going to get another re-enlistment bonus that could be, it's 10, 20, 30, $40,000, depending what they do, And I'm not talking about officers, Most of these people are not officer candidate school material, they're not going to get into that. But they could learn how to be a military cook, how to work radar, how to work in medical, work as a pharmacist mate, or drive trucks, drive buses, operate heavy equipment, work with electricity, work with nuclear stuff, maintain aircraft, be aircraft mechanic, truck mechanic, vehicle mechanic, car mechanic, repair air conditioners, install air conditioners, work with agriculture. There's a million things they could do. Work in purchasing for the military. And these are good non-combat jobs that they'll keep getting re-enlistment bonuses and raises in rank and stuff like that. When you're working with, would you like fries with that, you're not getting any kind of usable medical, if any medical at all. You're not going to have enough money to go buy a couple of 6-packs on the weekend or go to a movie and get some popcorn and a soda and a box of candy. You're not going to be able to do any of that. When they're in the military, they can buy at the post exchange a lot of goods, lots and lots of goods cheap. They can buy groceries there, get gasoline cheap, and many things. They're not so bad off, okay? And when this started, which was probably in the 90s, there's no war. I mean, that thing in Iraq happened, but this would be after the Iraq thing was over. Oh, stuff happened in Afghanistan and stuff like that, but they're not that worried about it because some of these kids go into combat units. They want to be recon Marines, they want to be airborne, they want to be Rangers, Green Berets, and then they're going to get into the hot spots. But the others that have no interest in doing that, they're not going to just stay as infantrymen, most of them. Some will, but what they're going to try to do is get into a technical skill that could transfer into the civilian sector when they get out. These are not patriots. These are not loyal Americans. These are not people these people have sexual preferences that are inconsistent with the standards, and they've got religious preferences that are not with America, like Muslimism, and you got that going on. You got probably a lot of drug use, recreational drug use. These are not the kind of people that America had in World War II. These are more like the hippies that got drafted into Vietnam. And yeah, that happened. And they came out with PTS, post-traumatic, this PTSD, whatever you call it, post-traumatic disorder. They were basket cases, and they still are. They never bounced out of it. And not only them, others. But when they got into the military, they had very little interest in being in the military. They hated it. They just didn't want to go to jail or run away to Canada. So they went into the military, and they wound up in the NAM, as they called it, right? And what were they doing in the NAM? Well, they were smoking pot, hash, opium, heroin, injecting it. I had a friend that was a medic in there, and what he told me when he got days off is he says, I went into the town and I went into the bar and I got myself a bottle of cognac. They had a lot of French cognac in there. And I would take the morphine from my medical kit and I would inject myself with morphine, and I'd sit there and drink cognac and fall asleep at the bar and stuff like that. He got out and snapped out of it when he got out of Vietnam. He actually wound up working for the CIA, but it was so depressing over there. It was absolutely depressing, horrendously depressing. The Americans were encouraging the prostitution because there was tons of prostitution running around there, and they were getting all kinds of diseases. And they were taking drugs into the camps around Vietnam, and they were staying high and getting shot at and fighting in the camps where they would try to overrun them and stuff like that. Then at the same time, you had a bunch of guys that were singing the Star Spangled Banner, Gung Ho America, and they wouldn't touch the drugs, but they hit the beer and the cognac all right, no problem there. And they were out there for blood. They wanted to kill the enemy of America, and they did a good job of it. So you had a mix of the two. But both of them were getting killed. They would go out on 3-day patrols. America would give them anti-fatigue pills to take, which is called speed, benzodrine, dexedrine, stuff like that, time release, whatever. And your body can handle it for up to 3 days, then you collapse. And that's how long the patrols were, because they were afraid to go to sleep out in the jungle. So they stayed up, and then what did these derelicts do? These idiots, they smoked pot out in the jungle with the speed. So they were hallucinating. They were out of their minds. So they come home and they get PTSD. Gee, what a surprise. Drugs were rampant over there. So, you had a lousy army. So what did America do at the end? Oh, they just pulled out. They said, this is stupid. We're not getting anywhere. Did they bomb the daylights out of them? Yeah. Were they Vietnamese people, the Viet Cong and so forth, going underground? Yeah. But the tunnels were not fortified against bombing. They were just, a few feet under the ground to hide from the Americans and bushwhack them, snipe at them and stuff like that. Were they getting help from the Chinese? Yes. Were they getting help from the Russians? Yes. Were Chinese and Russian troops over there helping them? Yes. Were they giving them equipment? Yes. Nothing changed. It's like it is now. America threw the towel in, and then they ended the draft because the country almost ripped apart. I went through it. I saw it. The country almost ripped apart. Most people that didn't go through it don't understand, but it almost ripped apart. Yeah. I don't see America almost ripping apart today because the people are far too dumbed down. They don't understand what's going on. So it's not ripping apart. They don't have a clue. Oh, Iran's over there, who cares? And Ukraine's over there, who cares? And Taiwan's over there, who cares? And, that type of thing. They're worried about getting the latest smartphone and the latest video game. They got their mind on other things. you know. Now I understand they're making a remake of The Godfather, which came out when 73 maybe. It was the book shocked people, and the movie was shocking people, and they made I think three Godfathers and or two, I think three, Al Pacino and stuff, and now they're redoing it and they're bringing the same people in, Al Pacino, and I understand what's that other guy's name? Uh, can't remember his name. Another movie star, a younger one, is going to be in it. I think he did the Great Gatsby or something. No, that was Robert Redford. Can't remember the guy's name, but he's going to be in. They're putting stars in it, and they're making another one. They're also redoing Scarface, which Al Pacino did, and that was about the crazy wild days of the 70s in Miami with the cocaine. And it was crazy wild days in there. Yeah. Okay. Let me take a poke at the live stream and see what's going on. I know my mods are taking good care of it. Then we're going to get into how Israel could be getting set up here. Okay. So October 7th was very suspicious. There was supposed to be an independent investigation as to what happened. In other words, not the military or the government investigating it, and Netanyahu crushed it. We never had this independent investigation. Netanyahu was way too scared for that to happen and started blaming everybody but himself. But who went over to visit Biden? Netanyahu. And what could happen? Well, the latest word we're hearing about Netanyahu is he may do now, because Trump's not interested in attacking Iran, he's more interested in negotiating with them, that Israel may attack the Iranian nuke facilities with a much lesser attack. Well, we did attack their nuke facilities in the past, but not really. We just took the radar out. We can't attack their nuke facilities. They're down too far. We don't have the equipment. Unless there's some new bomb that our jets can carry that will penetrate and get the nuclear facilities, which is possible but unlikely. We don't have B-52s. We don't have B-1s. We don't have B-2s. So for Israel to do that, Israel first has to take out the radar. So that's going to be a lot of airplanes, refueling tankers, attacking the radar in Iran, which we could do. Or at least all the radar nearby the nuclear facilities. And that's doable. We did it before. Then we drop heavy bombs as we can that penetrate as best they can down on the nuclear sites and hope to destroy them. And I don't think we can. I'm hearing 600 feet. They don't put these in the sides of mountains like the missile cities. I don't know if we can or we can't. And then they're talking about sending in commandos. So the plan would probably be a lot of bombing of the nuclear areas, which we could use these heavy bombs we got from America. I think they're 5,000 pounds or something, and they make a big blast percussive wave on the surface. They're not bunker busters, but they'll create all kinds of death and destruction. So maybe they intend to use those and knock all the personnel out and then paratroop. They got an airdrop commandos with a lot of equipment coming down on parachutes. It has to be very, very precise. to parachute down equipment to blow these facilities up, I don't think you're going to be able to put explosives in a backpack. You know, you're going to have pallets full of explosives coming down with parachutes, and then you're also going to need, or you could land helicopters, I suppose. If you cleaned out all the threats, you could, but maybe that, I don't know. They need explosives in large amounts. And then you can't carry, you know, 14,000 pounds of explosives, so they need to have parachute down some sort of vehicles. It's a big operation. Israel can pull stuff like this off. Then, unless they're going to try to parachute the stuff close to the facilities, but that would mean you got to get them within 25 feet or 100 or 200 feet, Even then, it would be a job for them to bring it over. So you need some sort of transportation of the bombs, which is going to be tens of thousands of pounds, through the facilities, unless we're going to try using sponge bombs. Sponge bombs work in the tunnels well in Gaza. It's a bomb that blows up like a foam, but it hardens like a hard concrete. So you put the device at the entrance/exit of the nuclear facility and you detonate it, and it's not a real blast where it makes a lot of percussion. It gets this spongy looking thing to fill up the exit and entrance, and then it hardens in a very brief period of time into a concrete. So everybody inside would be trapped. Okay? And you couldn't get in and out. So cries of genocide would come about. Now, can this amount of substance be easily brought in? Well, not that easy, because these are not openings like a Viet Cong tunnel where it was, the size of a sewer cover or something. No. These things are big enough to drive good-sized trucks in and out of, So you'd have to parachute on pallets these explosives. They could do that, but if you're going to hit 5 nuclear facilities and do this at 5 places simultaneously, it's an amazing military action. And you're not destroying the nuclear facilities. You're blocking the entrances and exits, so they'd have to come back with heavy equipment, drills that are used to go bore through rocks to make tunnels through mountains or something, and they'd have to drill the exits and entrances open or blast them open with explosives. In any event, it's doable. And then the nuclear facility is still intact, so it's still operational because it's way down. That doesn't make sense, does it? No. So they have to come with massive amounts of explosives, and you can't just set them down at the entrance. I don't think that's going to do it. It might, if you went to the entrance and put a few 2,000-pound packages of explosives, fired one, then another, and then another, you might wreck that entrance or exit, but they have multiple entrances and exits. I don't understand how this is going to work. I don't get it. Israel can fly MOP bombs if Trump gives them to us. Massive ordnance penetrator. And they'll go through 200 feet of hardened concrete. So you could, if we have those and we could carry them on maybe cargo planes or something like that, and then drop them with an SDAM kit to guide them and parachute them down and this and that. I don't know, maybe that would work. But then why do we need commandos on the ground? So the key here is the aircraft are going to take out the ground forces near the facilities, and they're going to take out the radar. And then the special forces will come in, and I'm not entirely sure what they could do. They're not going to shoot them. You know, it has to be explosives. If they gas the people with toxic fumes through the air intake system, there has to be an air intake system, and kill the people, the nuclear facility is still intact, the people are dead, so that'll hinder them for a while till they get new people and train them, but they might have gas masks in there in case this happens. Or they might have sophisticated air filters. I don't know. This all could be just a rumor as part of Trump's negotiations. So what could happen is Trump plays Iran, Israel as a proxy and says, okay, you attack Iran, I can't do it. And then they'll counterattack against us, and then I don't have to worry about Congress. You're our ally, and they hit other allies, oil refineries, they hit our bases, I'll attack them then. Maybe that's it. So now Trump has a good alibi to attack them. I don't know. Remember, Satan hates Israel, wants to get rid of Israel so he could stop end times, not go to the pit. And all the leaders of every country in the world are serving the devil in this age. The age isn't over yet. It's over when we hit redemption and the appearing of Yeshua, but not yet. So that's what's going on. And it looks like Trump's going to do some sort of a Mickey Mouse deal with Iran. And then Netanyahu may or may not attack Iran. And he's probably going to reach some sort of a tariff deal with China. But that's just assuming the wars aren't going to happen. But they do. They're in the prophecies. Iran gets wiped out along with Iraq and Syria, and that's in the prophecies. And Lebanon gets it, and Gaza gets it bad. So all this is going to happen. They could position and say all they want, but I go by the Bible prophecies, which I've covered with you many times. Ezekiel 25, Jeremiah 49 are extremely informative. Zechariah 12, Malachi 3 and 4. These are the ones you should be watching and reading, not Ezekiel 38, 39. That's off in the future, quite a ways down the road. But the churches teach it backwards. So we wait and we watch, see what happens. Let me tell you the other stuff that's going on. Arizona, yesterday or today, or maybe last night, America time is more accurate, got 5 to 6 inches of snow. Late April, Arizona, 5 to 6 inches of snow. Does that make any sense? Not to me. Earthquakes are still picking up, guys. You better pay attention. 5.9 by the Philippines off in the water, and a 5.1 in Japan. You better understand that these earthquakes are up, and that's a big birth pang sign. And volcanoes are up, called columns of smoke. That's a big one too that's up. It's up. You got to understand that. We have a prayer request for MW Mike Whiskey. Prayer request for MW Mike Whiskey. The prayer is for MW's family to want MW to return to them and that is the prayer request for MW Mike Whiskey, that the family wants MW to return to them and help this come to pass. Okay. Netanyahu is saying he's not going to surrender the Gaza war to Hamas just because of the hostages, to get the hostages back. So he's basically told Hamas, no, I'm not going to end the war and leave Gaza and let you rebuild to kill us another day just for the sake of the hostages being returned. So he's bearing down on them. Now, the Iranian-American negotiations, you have to consider bare bones minimum 50% they blow up. A bare bones minimum. We have not seen any ceasefires work in a long time. So don't expect it to work. I would say it's got a slim chance. But Iran's dragging it out, and America looks like they're dragging it out. They're both looking for a way to get over on the other one. So the meeting Wednesday between Iran and America is going to be with atomic energy technicians, and they're going to talk about technical things, percentages and inspections, I suppose, things like this. I've got to listen to something here. I'm hearing, I don't know what I'm hearing. Water. Hold on. Give me a second. No, I think it's the fan. I'll be right back. Hey, mommy. My best guess with Netanyahu and Trump is that they're working together and that Trump is going through more on negotiations with Iran, and cargo planes keep coming into Israel practically every day from America. So he's equipping Israel to attack the nuclear facilities, and he knows that Iran's going to respond back and hit American interests, bases, warships, and the allies of the oil-producing countries in the Middle East, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and all that, Saudi, Jordan, and then he can get into the war without worrying about them trying to impeach him and, why didn't you go to Congress and stuff like that. That's what I think could be going on. More than likely than anything else. Because it's insulting to see Trump play with Iran in such an idiot negotiation. That's probably the reality. So there will be the war. There's an outside chance that Turkey may load warships up with and bring cargo ships with humanitarian aid and just steam over to Gaza and try to land and bring the stuff in on the beach with shuttlecraft from the big boats. I don't know if he would do that. I mean, it could happen. I don't know. What Trump is trying to do is calm all the wars down and become, super dominant economic power in the world, and then build the military up to make a super powerful military. Let's go through why Apostle John is one of the two witnesses, okay? First, I have to show you why it's not Moses. So we go to Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27. Hebrews 9, 27 and 28. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. So did Moses die? Yeah, on Mount Nebo. He lay down and died. And they were having, the fight over his bones and stuff, the devil and all that. Okay, Moses died. He can't die again. The two witnesses die. It can't be Moses. It's impossible. If you're listening to people telling you it's Moses, you're listening to people that are pretty stupid. And I never plugged in this device. I better plug it in now before it runs out of battery. I got it. Saved it. Okay. So it can't be Moses. That's a biblical fact, a proof. There's no debate on that. Okay? Now let's read Hebrews 9:28, the next verse. So Christ was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for him. It doesn't say look for his, coming or this and that. Look for him. This is the appearing in the clouds in the sky. Look for him. Shall he appear? It says appear, not return to earth. He will return to earth, but that's after Gog and Magog. Shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation? All right? All right. Now, that takes Moses off the table. So let's go to John 21:21. Peter, seeing him, saith to Yeshua, Lord, and what shall this man do? No, I got to go back up another verse. Probably two verses. Let's see. I'm going to start this earlier. So we go to John 21:18. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself and walkest whither thou wouldest. So in other words, you got yourself dressed and went where you wanted to go. But when you are old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall dress you or gird you, and carry you whither thou wouldst not, and take you someplace you wouldn't normally want to go or go. This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, Follow me. Then Peter, turning about, seeth the disciple whom Yeshua loved. That is Apostle John, who came down from heaven. When you read the last part of Zechariah 4, the last verse, which I'll cover in a minute. Then Peter, running about, seeth the disciple whom Yeshua loved, following, which also leaned on his breast at supper, and said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? Peter, seeing him, saith to Yeshua, Lord, and what shall this man do? Speaking of Apostle John, apparently there was a little jealousy or curiosity. Yeshua saith unto him, If I will that he tarry till I come, not appear, come. Not appear, come. Return to earth. What is that to thee? Follow thou me. Then went this saying abroad among the brethren, that that disciple, Apostle John, the beloved, should not die. Yet Yeshua said not unto him, he shall not die, but if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? This is the disciple which testifieth of these things. This is John, Apostle John, not John the Baptist, and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. Okay? So this is why Apostle John is still alive. He never died. He probably has everlasting life or something like it, because he'd be about 2,000 years old. Okay? I don't know what he did for 2,000 years. Was he still in Israel when Israel was not occupied by the Jews? I don't know, maybe. There were always a few Jews here. Maybe he was here, or maybe he went someplace else and came back. I don't know. I really don't know. He dies along with Elijah. They both die, and then they rise from the dead. Now, when you study the two witnesses, well, before I do that, let me give you some more proof that he's one of the two witnesses, okay? And then I'll go through that the two witnesses both came down from heaven. Now, when Elijah went up to heaven, he didn't die. He went up in a whirlwind. The chariot from heaven came down, but he didn't go up in the chariot. He went up in a whirlwind. Okay? Now, he was probably changed, because when you see him in the Mount of Transfiguration, he's glorified, and so is Moses. So they didn't come down from Abraham's bosom. They came down from heaven. And Yeshua says only the one that came down from heaven goes back up to heaven. Now that applies to Yeshua and others, as I'm going to show you. There's no other explanation for them being so glorified. Okay. Now we go to Revelation 10, verse 11. Oh, wrong. Hold on. And he said unto me, well, I think we need to go back a little bit. This is Apostle John talking here. We'll go back to Revelation 10, verse 8. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go and take the little book which is open in thy hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. So he's kind of saying the act of you taking this, which, is very supernatural, will be sweet to you, but the actual contents of it are like a bitter pill to swallow. Not that it's going to do bad things to him so much, but it's what's going to happen to the other people, and, that sort of thing, I guess. That's how I interpret it. Verse 10, and I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate up, and it was in my mouth sweet like as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. Now, he never did that. The stories that we read about Apostle John, which are not contained in the Bible, kind of run like this. The Romans took him and put him in a Colosseum, and they had a big cauldron of boiling oil, and they put him in it to boil him alive in front of everybody. And he was preaching the gospel in the cauldron out loud the whole time they tried to boil him. And they couldn't boil him, and it didn't work. It was like going in the furnace in Daniel, it didn't do any good. I imagine his clothes got yucky, but maybe not even, because when they went in the furnace, nothing happened to their clothes. So his clothes, when he came out of the pot of oil, or the cauldron, whatever you want to call it, the big kettle, or whatever you call it, his clothes may have been dry and not even had the oil on them. We have a very powerful God. That's not in the Bible. That's what they say in the history. And another time they tried to make him eat poison, or they got him to force poison down. And, if you've imbibed any deadly thing, it will not harm you. And it didn't harm them. Like when Paul got hit by the poisonous snake, bit him by the wood after the shipwreck, he just shook the snake off in the fire, which eliminated this snake from among the living, I'm sure, in a gruesome way. And it didn't do anything to him. So the people there watched and said, oh, this guy's... First they said, he's cursed, he got the poisoned snake, he's going to blow up like a balloon and die a horrible death. And what happened instead is he had nothing happen. The snake died a horrible death. And then they said, oh, he's a man of God, and they started following him. So nothing happened with the poison with John either. So they put him on the island of Patmos because they didn't know what else to do with him. They couldn't kill him. I don't understand why they didn't try to cut his head off or anything, but I have no idea. And these stories are not Bible. They could be true. They could not be true. I don't know. But he's still here amongst us today in Israel, waiting for the light to go green. Okay? That and Elijah are your two witnesses. Now, to establish Elijah, it's not that hard. We go to Malachi, I believe it's Malachi 4, towards the end. Malachi 4, verse 4. Remember you the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb, for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Verse 5, Malachi 4, 5. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu HaNavi, be the Hebrew. You could say Eliyahu HaNavi, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. That's Gog and Magog. He comes before, 70 years before, actually, a little roughly. So that's based on the 270s from Daniel 9:24, which is incorrectly put in 99% of the English translations as 70 weeks. It's 270s. I've covered that all the time. There was a Babylonian captivity for 70 years, and then when was Yeshua born? Well, Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. He was probably not born in BC, before Christ. How could that be? He couldn't be born in AD after the death of Christ. How could that be? He would have been born in the Gregorian calendar year 0. At the end of that year, it would have been year 1. And then you go 70 years in there. I'm guessing that's what it is. Or the Babylonian captivity, or both. Okay, so let's go to Zechariah 4 and learn more about the two witnesses, which is really not taught. I'll take you through it. And the angel that talked with me came again and waked me. This is Zechariah. He's talking, as a man that is waken out of his sleep, and said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick. It's the word in the Hebrew is a menorah. It's a 7-station candlestick, not 8, 7, 3, 3, and 1 in the middle. And I said, we looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps, or 7 candlesticks thereon. The word here used for lamps is na'ir. Yeah, lamp is okay, thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which are upon the top thereof, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl and the other upon the left side thereof. 2 olive trees. Revelation 11, the 2 witnesses. These are the 2 olive trees, the 2 menorah, or the 2 candlesticks, or the menorah is what it's really saying. Okay. They're the 2 witnesses. Now, this is not a literalization. This is an allegorical description of the 2 witnesses, okay? That you need, spiritual discernment to understand. And the other answered and spake to the angel that talked with me, saying, What are these, my Lord? Then the angel that talked with me answered and said unto me, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he answered and spake unto me, saying, This is the word of Jehovah unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith Jehovah of hosts. See, that's how the 2 witnesses are going to work. They're not going to be carrying 44 magnums. They're not going to be 9th degree black belts in Taekwondo. Not by might and not by power. God's not using an army. He's not using jets. He's not using bombs. He's using 2 guys. And they're going to burn their enemies up with fire out of their mouth, which could be lightning, because when lightning strikes, it breaks into fire. And the word they're using for this can be lightning or fire. Okay. Now we're in verse 7. Who art thou, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the headstone thereof. That's for the temple, Zerubbabel's temple. not. I mean, no, it's not Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel's no, it is Zerubbabel. It's Zerubbabel's temple. Thereof shoutings, crying, grace, grace unto thee. No, wait a minute. It's the yeah, it's Zechariah bringing the message to Zerubbabel. It's Zerubbabel that built the temple. They were both contemporaries. So he's using Zechariah to explain to him that he's going to finish this temple. There was a 14-year break in the construction. Of course, they were being oppressed. Who art thou, O great mountain? Therefore, Zerubbabel, before Zerubbabel, thou shalt become a plain. He's saying, I'm going to knock the mountain down. That's the people that were bothering Zerubbabel to stop him. And he shall bring forth the headstone of the next temple. Thereof with shoutings, crying, grace, grace unto it. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it, and thou shalt know that Jehovah of hosts hath sent me unto you. So he's telling Zerubbabel that he's going to know from these signs that the Lord sent Zechariah to him. For who hath despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel with those seven. They are the eyes of Jehovah, which runneth to and fro through the whole earth. Then answered I and said unto him, what are these two olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? And I answered again and said unto him, what be these two olive branches, which through the two golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? And he answered me and said, knowest thou not what these be? And I said, no, my Lord. Now we're going to tell you a lot, okay? Then said he, these are the two anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Okay. The Lord of the whole earth is not standing on the earth. He's standing in heaven. Okay, it's Jehovah. Now, it's not Yeshua. Yeshua is not the Lord of the whole earth at this time. Yeshua wasn't yet revealed. It's Jehovah, Father God Jehovah. And it doesn't say the two anointed ones. It says Shtaim B'nai Yitzhar in the Hebrew, every Hebrew text. And that means two sons of clarified oil. The oil means anointing. So they're right when they say to be anointed. And that's what the word Mashiach means too. Anointed. This is a disguised way of telling you that Apostle John and Elijah are two sons of God from heaven, and that's why they go back up to heaven, just the same way Yeshua did when they rose from the dead. God said, sorry, that was that idiot update notice. I got rid of it. So God says, in Revelation, 11, come up hither, and they rise up on a cloud to heaven like Yeshua did from the dead. Yeshua did that from the dead with a 40-day delay. Okay? Now, some of you say, well, I don't understand. God has more than one son. Well, I'm not going to belabor the point with you. He has several sons. Uh, Many of you aren't going to receive who some of them are, but I'm going to give you a scripture that shows you that he has several sons. Job 1, verse 6. And, well, I wound up in Job 2. Why did I do that? I must have hit the thing with my big fingers. Now there was a day when the sons, plural, B'nai, I believe is the word, it means sons, plural, of Elohim came, sons of God, came to present themselves before Jehovah, and Satan came also among them. So, you want it, your proof scripture there, you got it. God doesn't trust this kind of power to other but his sons. And they've come to earth more than Moses was one, because he was the Mount of Transfiguration. He was glorified. Came with Elijah, who was also glorified. Okay? There's other sons. He doesn't give this kind of power to anybody but his sons. The two witnesses are going to do more miracles and greater miracles than what Yeshua did, but they're not greater than Yeshua. He's the firstborn son, and he gets a double portion. God gave us the law to follow the way God works. Okay? So he's the Messiah. He's the King of Israel. He's the high priest of the order of Melchizedek. But, you know, Apostle John, the beloved, and Elijah are brothers of Yeshua, heavenly brothers. They were not originally made out of the earth like Adam and Eve. No. Let everyone produce after their own kind. God reproduces after his own kind too. He made them as gods. Now we will become gods. Scripture tells us that, but not yet. But we will get there. But they're gods that take on a human form and come down to earth for deliverance. Okay? Elijah never got killed before, never died before, so he still can die once. And then you have Apostle John, who hasn't died yet, so he can die once. So now you know more than most people do. Let me jump into the live stream here and see what's going on. I do try to answer questions. No, I'm not seeing questions come up, but I would answer them. My email address is in the description box if you want to ask me questions. Now, let me look at something here with you guys in a minute. All right, we'll cover this. Galatians 2:14. It was a question from a subscriber and a good question, and I'll go through it. Galatians 2:14. But when I saw that they walketh not upright according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou being a Jew livest after the manner of the heathen, and not as do the Jews, why compellest thou the Goyim to live as do the Jews? Okay. We who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Goyim, of the heathen, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith, the faith of Yeshua HaMashiach, even we have believed in Yeshua HaMashiach, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. It's really self-explanatory, but to break it down, it means you're not going to make it into heaven for eternity based on following the works of the law. It ain't going to happen. Okay? You're only going to come in through Yeshua. That's why it says all Israel shall be saved if you're in Yeshua HaMashiach for real, not because you joined some church. If you're really in Yeshua, then you're part of Israel and you will be saved. Now I'm in verse 17 of Galatians 2. But if while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves also are found sinners, therefore Christ, the minister of sin, God forbid. You don't want to be found that way. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor of something, law, right? Or something. For I, through the law, am dead to the law, that I might live unto God. See, he's dead unto the law because the law is not going to give him life, eternal life. It's not going to give him everlasting life either. It's not going to give him any of this. But does that mean we're supposed to break the law and become adulterers, murderers, liars, and drunks? No. I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And that doesn't happen from following the law. Christ liveth in me, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Now, I need to explain this to you guys again. When Yeshua came to earth about 2,000 years ago, he changed much about the law. Let's talk about this. Are apostles, pastors, evangelists, and pastors in the old Moses law? No, they're not there. That's different. What about meeting in houses? That's new. They didn't have that in Moses' law, not at all. Congregations were not in the law. Were the gifts of the Spirit in the law? No, not at all. Many things Yeshua taught us and got us into are not in the law. The Galatians 5 verses 19 to 21, that if you do variance or you do divisions, seditions, you're not going to enter the kingdom of God. Well, the Pharisees and Sadducees were doing those beforehand, but I don't know what happened to them after Yeshua said that. Probably did pretty bad things. Okay? Many things changed. Many things. And now I'm in verse 21. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. Got it? Now, the church will try to use this stuff to tell you that the law is dead, but Yeshua told us in Matthew 5:17, think not that I came to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. For as long, now verse 18 is, for as long as there is a heaven and an earth, not one jot or tittle shall be done away with from the law. For the one that breaks the least of these commandments and teaches men shall be called least in the kingdom of God, but the one that teaches them all and practices them shall be called great in the kingdom of God. That's I'm changing the words slightly to make it easier. But okay, the law is not done away with, neither are the prophets, and he came to fulfill them. Yeah, but he's not finished fulfilling them. Have you ever read in New Jerusalem with the see-through gold streets? What's the matter? Let me get the dog in. I don't know what's wrong. Hold on. Go home. Go home, Mommy. Now, home. Oh, it's you crying. She's not crying. All right. No, it was the other dog crying in the house. I don't know, she's in the mood for a hamburger. You know. Probably like me to call the pizza guy and get an extra large meat lover deluxe and tell him to hold the pizza. Okay, so the law doesn't bring you salvation and eternal life, and you don't get to go to heaven and be with Jehovah over that, okay? When they died, the good ones didn't go to heaven. They went to where? Abraham's bosom. What happened? Yeshua led captivity captive. When he went down and preached to the dead, the Jews, about the dry bones, and they were going to have another chance and come to Israel, he took captivity from Abraham's bosom and brought them to heaven. So they got to heaven through Yeshua. Not the law. They got to heaven through Yeshua. They got to Abraham's bosom, probably by observing the law. Beulah, what's wrong? Or I'm hearing Mommy, I think. Okay, so anyway, I hope that helped you. The law's not dead. But it's been changed a lot. And it's going to get changed again when the next temple descends from heaven. In Ezekiel 43, we're given the law of the temple, the ordinances of the next temple. That's different. We have an anointed prince from the line of David in there doing the sacrifices inside the temple area, not a Kohanim, a descendant of Aaron. Now it's shifted to David. Many things change. The glory of God of Israel will be living in the temple. It's a lot of changes. But they become the law. He says in Ezekiel 43, it's the Torah of the next temple, the law of the next temple. So a lot of congregations are hung up, or believers are hung up on Moses' law. Well, Moses' law has been heavily modified, or you wouldn't have congregations, you wouldn't have apostles, you wouldn't have pastors, you wouldn't have evangelists, you wouldn't have teachers, you wouldn't have people meeting in the houses, you wouldn't have elders, and, all of this stuff you wouldn't have. Also, you'd be able to just divorce your wife by handing her a piece of paper that says, "You and me are divorced. Hit the road, Toad." You can't do that anymore, only for adultery or if she leaves you physically. You can't, it's all changed. It doesn't hold up when you make the argument, we got to stick to, Moses' law in the first 5 books of the Bible. Well, that's all changed up quite a bit. But the weightier things of the law still apply. How you do business, widows, orphans, friends, neighbors, many things. How do you love God? All this stuff. It's different. It's not the same thing. I hope that's helping. So let's see if I'm getting any questions. See, when you talk about the dietary laws changing in Acts 10, you get blowback. But when you talk about, hey, there were no apostles or pastors or teachers or evangelists in the Moses law, now people get a little stumped. There also was just the tabernacle in Moses' law that was portable, not an actual physical temple. And the gifts of the Spirit weren't given to the people, just an anointing was given to the king and the high priest and the prophets, not the people at large, millions and millions of them. So, been a lot of changes. Okay, so I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for our finances. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for better videos and that I get more insights to prophecy with sequencing, timing, and other things. Pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. And I send my shalom, my Shabbat shalom, it's still Shabbat. Send my Shabbat shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out. Thanks, guys.